My guests today on Keeping It Off are Jordan and Dani Torres. Initially, they each had their own successful weight loss journeys as individuals, each losing well over 100 pounds after having bariatric surgery. They ended up meeting each other through a Facebook group called Bariatric Gym Rats, where members connect and support each other on their fitness journeys after bariatric surgery. Ultimately, they got married and have since combined their health journeys, even serving as admins for that Facebook group, which now has over 10,000 members. In this conversation, we touch on a wide range of topics, from their experiences with weight loss surgery, the importance of changing our relationship with food, transfer addiction after bariatric surgery, and using GLP-1 medications as a powerful tool to help maintain weight loss. Their story is real, authentic, and I know you'll get so much out of it. Our conversation was recorded several months back, and I'm so excited to be able to share it with you now. Please enjoy. So Jordan and Dani Torres, welcome to the Keeping It Off podcast.
What's up, Joel? Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So I am from the South, so we believe in ladies first. So Dani, let's start with you. When did you first realize that you wanted to lose weight? How old were you? What did you try before? I know that you eventually decided on weight loss surgery, but before weight loss surgery, how did you try to lose weight?
Yeah, so I was definitely young when I realized that I was a little heavier than the other kids. I would say elementary school. And then as I got older, I kind of kept putting on weight. I was still very active. I did, when I was younger, try to go to the gym, but I didn't really know what I was doing. So I didn't stick with it as much as I should have. I did try a lot of fad diets. The one that I really did like that I was successful with, though, prior to surgery, was Weight Watchers. I think I lost 50 pounds the first time I did it. And then I did it again and I lost after I put on weight. So I did it again and I lost around 40 pounds that time, but I was never able to really keep it off, which is why I ultimately decided to do weight loss surgery.
Yeah, I think many of us can relate to, being the hefty kid in elementary school. I certainly was, even though looking back at pictures, I don't see myself as if I saw myself as a kid, I probably wouldn't think oh, that's a fat kid. I would just think, that's a normal kid, is maybe a little chunkier, but probably going to grow into it. But I remember as a kid thinking I was so much bigger than my friends, which I don't think I was, but yeah, it's funny how we have that perspective. Jordan, were you a chunky kid growing up? And when did you start, trying to lose weight, and what kind of things did you do to try to lose weight?
Yeah, I was husky my entire life, always the heaviest kid in elementary school, especially middle school. I was hitting 120, 130 pounds easy in sixth grade. I was active in a sense. I played baseball, but I was definitely the slowest kid on the field, no question. And when I got to high school, I actually moved down south. We're from Philly, and I moved down south when I was 13. But I had a very hard time fitting in originally, just because I was the new kid, and I was extremely overweight. I was pushing 200 pounds easy as a freshman in high school. I was a drummer. I did marching band and whatnot. I wanted to lose weight then, but I had no idea what I was doing. I suffered from eating disorders when I was younger. For two reasons. On my dad's side rather, my grandmother had a rule that if you wanted seconds, you could have seconds, but you had to finish what was on your plate. She was, we're Puerto Rican, so there was no wasting food. So really, even if you wanted a little bit, whatever she put on your plate, you were forced to eat. And then on the other side, on my mom's side, I was put on blast a lot by my mom, where she would shame me if I was still hungry and wanting more, and she would tell me no. So then I would find myself in the fridge late at night, binge eating a lot. And that's really where my binge eating disorder came into play. So yeah, I wanted to lose weight forever. Tried, and I'm an 80s baby. So even as a kid, I was doing Richard Simmons Sweating to the Oldies. Back then there was the 48-hour diet. There was the Mayo Clinic diet. I was trying all these things. When Atkins first came out, I was trying that because it was just anything that I could do to fix it quickly is what I was trying to do. And obviously, there's no success in those. This is not a quick fix type of thing. Eventually, when I became employed where I was offered medical insurance, none of the insurances were ever good enough to even want to come close for them to touch these types of surgeries. So when I got a job for Philadelphia's public transportation system, it was through the city. It was a union job. So there was great insurance there. So that was the first thing I immediately did. I went to my doctor and I said, here's SEPTA insurance. Give me all the bells and whistles because it covers all of it. And I just pretty much went from there.
Gotcha. And was that when you first, decided to have weight loss surgery?
No, I was like saying, I had a few jobs prior to that had where I had medical. So I went to the doctor and tried, but the insurance just wouldn't cover it. It was considered an elective procedure, and I had to pay way too much out of pocket, way more than I could even think about affording at the time.
Gotcha. And how long ago was that you ultimately decided to, or you ended up being covered by your insurance and that surgery?
2017. Yeah, and
Gotcha.
it actually went pretty quickly. Like, I got the job, I went to my doctor immediately, and I think I had surgery within like 3 or 4 months. I did the whole process, from all the meetings and all the classes I had to take, and with the shrink meeting, and it all happened very quickly. So I was able to get in relatively fast.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's jump back over to Dani. So when, you said you had a lot of sort of yo-yo dieting, which I think a lot of us can relate to. And then at what point did you decide like weight loss surgery is maybe an option for me? And what were your like hesitations or reservations about, having surgery?
So I've always been yo-yoing with my weight. I ultimately decided to have the surgery because I put on a lot of weight with my pregnancy, like a lot of weight. And I remember being at work. I worked at like an office, so an office job, answering phone calls. And I just happened to like Google weight loss surgery near me. Had been a nursing student and had actually seen a couple of these surgeries done when I was in school. But like it never really crossed my mind. Like I never thought that I was heavy enough to do it, or like I guess I felt like I didn't want to be heavy enough to be able to do it, if that makes sense. And so I never really thought of it as an option. But I was at work that day and I just Googled it and I put in my stats and my information, and I was like, okay, I could do this. And so I didn't know anything really about the surgery. And I took the steps. I was young. This was in 2015. I had the surgery. So probably, 2015. So I was 24, 25.
When you were, looking into surgery, did you have multiple surgeries you were choosing between, or was it just the sleeve gastrectomy?
So it's funny that you say that because, like I said, I didn't really know much about the surgeries. I knew there was different kinds, but I knew that the bypass was like the most common one. And so I went in, and most of my pre-op stuff, I was set to do the bypass, not the sleeve. It wasn't until I actually met with the doctor who persuaded me to do the sleeve instead. Honestly, it was so long ago, I forget exactly what was said, but it was at that time a newer procedure. So she just kind of went over the different types, and she did tell me why it would benefit me more at that time in my life to have that surgery.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's why I ultimately chose the sleeve, because the doctor recommended it.
And we should say too that I know we'll get into this, I'm sure, later in the podcast, but you guys were not together at this point. So you had your weight loss surgery and your, some of your journey kind of independently. And then you got together after, were post-surgery for several years. Jordan, what about you? Why did you choose, you ended up choosing the gastric bypass. Why did you choose that surgery over, other options you had?
Yeah. So for me, I didn't choose it per se. My doctor chose it for me. And the reason going in is because the sleeve obviously is the less invasive procedure to have. It's the easier procedure out of the two. The reason why my surgeon opted for me to have bypass is because I had reflux. So once I had that test, he told me that I'd benefit by having the bypass, and he wound up removing my gallbladder at the same time because I was having horrific heartburn. So really it was his choice. If I didn't have reflux, I would have probably went with the sleeve myself. But because I had that and he was going to remove my gallbladder, ultimately he thought the best decision was for me to have the bypass.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you could both kind of just give us, set the table, what was your heaviest weight before surgery? And then like talk a little bit about, right after surgery, what was it like for you? And Danny, let's start with you.
Sure. So my heaviest weight that I know of was 294. I'm pretty sure I was a little heavier than that at one point, but my recorded weight is 294. And so when I went into surgery, I was nervous, but I came out on the other side. I remember it being pretty painful when I woke up. The gas pains were really bad, but I remember thinking that this is the start of my new life and it's worth the pain that I'm feeling right now. And so I was excited to be in my new journey.
And what about maybe the first few months after surgery? Like, what was it like, readjusting to the amount of food you could eat? And what were some of the hard parts or maybe easier than you expected parts of that part of your surgery?
The first few months were definitely, I had to adjust to it. Me and Jordan had talked about this before. Sometimes we would eat burgers on our way to our weight loss meetings, So coming back or out of surgery and like not being able to eat really much of anything is kind of a shock to like yourself, like your body, but like also mentally, because for me, like it releases dopamine for me. Like I like to eat food. I enjoy eating food, not cooking it. That's Jordan's thing, but eating food, I like it. That's why I was heavy in the first place. And so the first few months, I remember the first week, you can only have broth and Jell-O and popsicles.
That in itself was, there was a learning curve in that. I mean, you're talking about a lot of throw up from the beginning of post-surgery until you learn how to eat, man. I mean, it's just, and it's something that I still struggle with today. I'm always a fast eater, but it's impossible. You can't, especially so close to being the surgery. It's throwing up, man. It's just so uncomfortable. On top of that, I'll never forget. I don't know if you experienced it, Joel. I know Danielle has, dumping. Did you ever get any of the dumping?
I have not had that, thankfully, yet, but I mean, I still
get it to
this
4 months day. If I eat something that's too sweet, it is absolutely horrific. I mean, you want to talk about, we have to change the sheets in the bed because like you are just absolutely soaking wet. You are drenched. Your vision's spotty. And these are just things that you're just not used to because you're used to just be able to eating whatever, But yeah, those first few months were a struggle, man. I specifically remember, though, wanting to get back in the gym relatively quickly. I worked out previous to weight loss surgery. I just would eat like crap, so it really didn't do much. And I don't necessarily know if I knew what I was doing in the gym, pre-surgery, but I just remember wanting to get in there. Like Danielle said, it was definitely painful. I remember those gas pains for the first few days when, because they pump your stomach with gas to get in there with their tools and you're waiting for that to release. And that was painful. And I couldn't wait to get the clearance from the doctor to get back in the gym, man. That was my biggest thing. I just wanted to get active. And I remember being very impatient. I remember being 3 months post-op and I'm like, man, I'm still fat as hell. This sucks. I was just ready for it to come off.
It's funny because I had like the opposite of that. Like I actually didn't start working out until I lost all the weight. And then I started working out, which I wouldn't suggest doing. I would suggest trying to work out while you're losing weight. That is the healthy way. But at that point in my life, I wasn't seeing the progress I wanted to at the rate I wanted to, like muscle gain wise, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I still had fat. So I literally waited until actually a couple years after I had surgery to start lifting weights.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that because I know you both sort of had journeys about weight loss, but then also, we could call it like a fitness journey or a, muscle building journey or whatever you want to say. So yeah, talk about that a little bit. Maybe Danny, like what was it like after you lost the weight? What was it like? Because I know in my previous attempts at losing weight, I always had in my head, like, as soon as I hit a certain number on a scale, like, all my problems are solved. Like, everything's just perfect. So
Yeah.
what was that like for you, actually hitting the goal weight and then realizing you still maybe had more things that you needed or wanted to do?
Yeah, so it was definitely exciting hitting the goal weight. And then that was what kind of drove me to want to work out in the gym. So I'm like, all right, I made it. Now, like, I can actually do different things that I want to do. The point that I struggled with in the gym, like getting myself there, is I had like a fear of me looking stupid or doing something wrong in the gym or hurting myself because I'm doing it wrong, but I don't know what I'm doing. I guess still had that fear of like people looking at me and making fun of me because I was used to being heavier and, you get treated a little differently. So I just, still had that sit with me in starting the gym. But when I did finally start going to the gym, I started actually in my living room doing the Insanity program. I've done that a couple times and I was starting to see results doing it. I actually had like a 6-pack because of doing it. Thanks, Shanti. Yeah. And then I started going to the gym and ultimately I joined a Facebook group in which our buddy Josh came up with, I guess, and Jordan was an admin in the group. And that's how me and Jordan actually kind of met.
So Jordan, let's jump back to, I don't think you mentioned your heaviest. So talk about your heaviest weight. And then you said that you wanted to get back to the gym after surgery. So were you in the gym before weight loss surgery? And what was your relationship to the gym like, when you were heavy?
Yeah. So my high weight was 350 pounds. But, for being 350 pounds, like you could definitely tell that I was obese, like extremely overweight, but I carried all my weight in my tummy. I was still in construction. Previous to being in construction, I was a chef. So I was on my feet all day. I had a very small stint where I had lost a little bit of weight myself. I got down my lowest to 220 pounds by doing Slim Fast, which is not sustainable long term because the calories are just so low. But it did get me down to that certain point until I plateaued. The problem was I wasn't knowledgeable enough to know how to get past that plateau. And for anybody who knows, you hit that plateau where you stop losing and you get frustrated, and that's where you fail. And you just forget it. Throw your hands up on one doing where it's over. So I don't think I was in the gym per se, like right before surgery. It might have been 2 years beforehand or a year beforehand. I was in the gym a little bit. I had just recently met my ex-wife like a year beforehand. So, I think that's when I stopped going to the gym. So yeah, 350. And then, so I know I had to wait for, I think it was 9 weeks is when the surgeon was going to clear for just cardio. And I was good about that. I didn't push past the point of just doing cardio, but cardio was enough for me at the moment. I mean, anything that's going to get your heart rate up is going to help you burn more calories. So I started seeing a little bit more of a difference once I started getting in the gym and doing some cardio. And again, it was all a learning process. And in that time frame, and this is going to be one of my biggest tips that I can have for anybody who has surgery that's listening to this. You're going to have a lot of free time in the beginning because you're not going to be able to eat or do much. Take that time to really develop a relationship with food and how you eat, because it is the most important thing on what's going to make this successful. You're going to hear a ton of people say that, weight loss surgery isn't successful. Mostly everyone who does the surgery puts the weight back on. And the people who do that are the people that aren't changing their mentality and how they eat. Because ultimately, food really is not the problem. It's the person that's eating the food, because you have control of what you're putting in your body, So I took that time to really learn about eating and what I needed to eat correctly, because, listen, I saw this as my opportunity. This was it. This was the reset of my life. It was the chance I've been waiting for. I was heavy my entire life. I knew this was going to be my one shot to fix all that and get a new life. Unfortunate as it is to say, and I think Danielle touched on it briefly, is, people treat you different. And I saw that almost immediately when I when I probably lost about 50 or 60 pounds, I started getting treated differently. And I'm by honest, I liked it. It was nothing, not that I didn't have, like, I wasn't popular. I have a ton of friends and I had a great group, but needless to say, just in public in general, when you're really overweight and obese, people just treat you differently, and just getting that attention that you normally didn't get otherwise, it was more of a motivating factor to say, yeah, here we go. This is what I've been waiting for 20 years. And here I am, and we're here. And it just drove me to push harder and harder and do more research and more research.
Yeah.
I think that was something I didn't really prepare for either, was that people do treat you very differently. I remember one instance when I was really heavy in college. I was just walking down the street with my friend, minding my business, and somebody yelled out the window something about me being fat. And that really stuck with me. Like, it really resonated with me, like it still sits with me 12 years later. But losing the weight, you get different attention just in the ways that like people hold the door for you, or people will give you a smile instead of, I feel like, kind of glaring at you or judging you, if that makes sense. But I wasn't prepared for the type of attention, along with even just your friends and family, the attention you get from them, because that in itself was nice, like people recognize your hard work and saw what you were doing and complimented you. So it's just, you do get a lot more attention all around.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm in the middle of my weight loss journey right now. So as of today, I think I'm down 96 pounds from surgery.
Awesome.
So coming up,
Congrats.
I'm so close to the 100. So hopefully soon. But yeah, I've started to notice that a little bit. People treating you differently, or people, and I don't think it's necessarily malicious. It's sort of, we
I don't
have
think it is.
unconscious. Yeah, there's sort of unconscious things that we're just sort of trained socially, and yeah, it's interesting to observe that, and it is hard not to feel some emotions around that, like, because you feel like the same person on the inside, but you definitely, you're changing on the outside, and it's interesting to see those interactions change. I would like to ask you both about once, you took a significant amount of weight off, what was it like? What was your journey like of maintaining? Was it a straight line? Was it an up and down? Was it easier than you thought? Was it harder than you thought? Kind of for both of you, what was that like?
So it's kind of twofold for me. I still fluctuate in my weight. I definitely am not anywhere near 294 pounds, nor have I ever gotten back up to that weight. But I do fluctuate in weight, sometimes a significant amount of like 50, 60 pounds. I mean, my lowest weight right now is 155. So putting on weight is something that I struggled with, because when I got to my lowest weight of 155 and I started working out, you put on weight because you have to eat to fuel your body to gain muscle. So not only am I gaining weight, but I'm gaining muscle, the fluctuation in my weight, And just to touch back with what Jordan said, like, I am still working on developing a solid relationship with food. I think that's something that I'm personally always going to struggle with. Surgery is just a tool to help me be successful. A lot of the work you have to do on your own, and it comes from, for me, like, I like to eat. When I'm stressed out, I eat. And just having a good relationship with food, and something that I just have to continue to work on.
Question for you, Jordan. Dani said that when she lost a bunch of weight, she had sort of a weight loss journey and then a fitness journey where she kind of built her weight back up with muscle. What was that relationship with you, where it was it all weight loss and then muscle building, or was it sort of at the same time?
Yeah, it was definitely at the same time. And that really came from the research that I was doing, and from, joining some of these other these bariatric Facebook groups. And then because I knew going into it, with how heavy I was and the significant amount of weight that I was going to lose, I knew that I was going to have a ton of excess skin, right? And I already knew right off rip that I was going to do everything in my power I could to try to minimize the damage. I knew I was going to need plastic surgery at some point, which I haven't gotten, by the way. I still have some excess skin, but not as bad as I think it could have been if I didn't at the time work on putting muscle on at the same time. But I think what people fail to realize too is when you put on muscle, it's only going to accelerate the way that you lose fat, right? Because your body requires more energy to maintain the muscle that you have. So the more muscle you put on, the more calories your body is going to require just to survive. So if you have a lot of excess fat, but you're working on putting muscle on at the same time, one, you're going to be burning more calories because you're lifting weights, and you're going to be burning more calories in the gym. And that breaks down into two parts. One, it's going to, your heart rate's going to be up while you're actually doing the exercise. Okay. And then two, when you're at home and you're sitting on your butt and your body is trying to repair the damage that you just did in the gym, you're now burning calories too, because your body has to use calories in order to repair yourself. Right. And this is stuff that I learned along the way, to help me get the success that I had. So I always was, once I was cleared to start lifting, I really put a lot of emphasis and focus into learning how to lift properly. And my wife will tell you, I have extreme OCD. So when I am laser focused in on something and forget about it, I become obsessed and I become a perfectionist at it. And this was no different. And really it fueled the remaining part of my journey, over the next 2 to 3 years past post-surgery.
Well, what was it like once you sort of hit some of your goal weights? Were you just able to stay there pretty easily, or was it a struggle to sort of maintain a certain weight after you kind of lost a good chunk of the initial weight?
So this is a unique part of my journey, actually, because when I hit my lowest weight, which was around 183, which if you factor in the amount of excess skin that I had, I was probably in the 170s. We were in the height of COVID. So really everything was shut down, and, I was already very much into my gym routine, but there was no gym, right? So, I then became very laser focused on finding ways where I can continue the routine that I was in, because I am very much a creature of habit. And when my routine gets disrupted, my whole world is chaos. So, with COVID happening and the gyms closing, a lot of us in that gym rats group, we struggled heavily, man. I don't know where I would have been in my journey directly if I didn't have that gym rats group, because we all leaned on each other heavily during COVID because everyone was struggling. Here we are, we had the opportunity to have the surgery, and, we're trying to be physically fit and to better ourselves, and everything just stopped. So we got through it together. I was doing a lot of at-home workouts. I found people that were scalping weights at astronomical prices that I bought to build a small gym in my basement. And then I would go run on the track. So I would say the next year after surgery, I don't necessarily know if I struggled with any weight gain. I was having a hard time keeping it on. If anything, I just kept losing and losing and losing. I tried to maintain the routine that I had. It obviously wasn't the same, but and then once gyms opened back up, it was just kind of business as usual.
So you guys have both sort of had individual journeys up to this point, and then at a certain point, you both are in this Facebook group and you sort of connect. So kind of tell me that story of how you guys got connected.
So I'm going to take over on this. Yeah, because I had the opposite effect with COVID. That's actually when I started my fitness journey, is when COVID happened. So I started doing Insanity, and then I started going to the gym with my ex-boyfriend at the time. He was teaching me, but I didn't know form, and again, I didn't want to look stupid in the gym. And so me and him had broke up, and I ended up joining this Facebook group, and I posted in there looking for help with my form on an exercise, and Jordan had messaged me. Well, he commented on it, and then we started bantering back and forth, and he messaged me, and we have talked every day since then. And we actually got married. I moved from Massachusetts to Pennsylvania. Anything you want to add, babe?
Yeah, I'll fill in the blanks. Yeah, so I was actually in the process of being divorced at that time, which, is a very, very common tale with people who have bariatric surgery. And, if you ask in that gym rats group, how many people have either went through a breakup in just a regular relationship or divorce after just having surgery, dude, it is so common. It's insane. And it's not that it was done intentionally, but it's, when you have a partner sometimes that doesn't necessarily want to support you, and they see that you're having all these positive changes and you're getting attention and, they become very envious and jealous. And I would say, this is your opportunity. Come along for the ride with me if you want. This is great for the both of us. And long story short, she chose not to. So, I was very much already starting to break away. I'm making plans to, I was like, I'm not letting this affect me. I have a new life here. And with that being said, Danielle posted that and I was like, man, she's cute, man. That nice form too. I'm going to just shoot her a message. So, I texted her and I messaged her and I said, that's great form. But then we just started chatting every day. And I think 1 or 2 months in, we decided to take the plunge and meet up halfway. So we met in Connecticut. And then it was pretty much history at that point, man. And then like she said, it's been 4 years now. And we've literally talked every day since that first message. And, we're very grateful for Gym Rats because of that. We met there. Danielle eventually became an admin in that group also. We've built some great friendships in that group. When I joined that group, I believe there was only 500 members. There's over 10,000 in that group now. And I'd like to think that Danielle and I had a very significant part in growing that group to what it is, because we were very active, again, because of the love we had for that group, because we met each other. We wanted to give back to that community and we helped a lot.
I know with my wife and I, so my wife actually had bariatric surgery we had surgery 2 weeks apart. So I had SADS surgery and then 2 weeks later, my wife had a gastric bypass. And we decided, that we wanted to do it together. I sort of initially said like I wanted to do it, and then she decided to come along, which I'm very grateful for. But I know in the past we've both gone through the sort of yo-yo phase, right, of putting on weight, getting off weight, and we've both been able to help motivate each other, but we've also been able to like sort of almost enable like some bad behavior sometimes, right? Like if I'm just not feeling it and my wife's like really trying to go on a diet, like I might throw her off her focus, or vice versa. So how has that been now that you guys have had your own individual journeys and then bringing them together?
So yeah, I've always yo-yoed with my weight, and Jordan has too a little bit. And so we definitely enable each other sometimes. And when we're good, we're both really good, but when we want a little treat, we can influence the other one sometimes. So Jordan does a lot of the cooking.
Do all the cooking.
99% of the cooking. So I guess I don't really have control over it. I'm going with that. But
we just make sure Jordan cooks everything and then you guys stay on track. Okay.
Yeah. But no, in all seriousness, like he does cook fairly healthy meals a majority of the time. Sometimes it's all about balance, and that's something that we really learned or had to learn with the surgeries, that balance, like it's okay to enjoy food. Sometimes it is, and, use the word diet, and I hate that word now because, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, and it's about balance and, and not starving yourself anymore, but not overindulging and finding that balance. Sorry, I keep saying that word.
No, it's a good word.
Yeah. So, it's funny too, because when, if you looked at our table and you had to guess, so, if this person had bariatric surgery, if we went out to eat, you looked at us and what we order when we go out to eat, it's hilarious because we do like to indulge. We both like to eat, and we'll go out and we'll order like we didn't have surgery. And I'm talking about, we're going to order an appetizer a piece. We're going to order an entree a piece. We're going to order dessert. And literally all of it comes home. All of it.
All of it. All of it. We
And
take
it
2
happens
bites
every single time, man. It's
every
hilarious.
time. And that just has to go with back to the relationship with food too, because like we just really enjoy eating, and we know eventually that food is going to get eaten. It's just going to take us a lot longer. So we do like to enjoy ourselves, but we do like to eat healthy too. And that's, like I said, it's all about the balance, good with the bad.
So the name of the podcast is Keeping It Off. So I'm interested in what are the ways that people have successfully, changed their life and kept weight off. But I
Okay.
guess, is it as easy as have surgery and everything's fixed? Or is it like, what other skills have you had to develop, other than having the surgery?
Sure. So it's, like I said before, the surgery is a tool to help you be successful in your weight loss journey. It's there to guide you and give you guidance, I guess. But I think Jordan had touched upon it, or Joel, you did, that some people gain weight back after surgery because they don't follow, the tool guidelines. And so really it's just, like we had said before, your relationship with food and just like your overall outlook. You need to be working out to some degree, moving your body, all those things are going to help you maintain that weight loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Jordan, what about for you?
Yeah, so listen, I've had some pretty remarkable experiences through this journey that really helped me become extremely knowledgeable just in health and fitness in general. Right around the time when I met Danielle, I'd already lost a significant amount of weight, and I was already getting really into the weightlifting itself, posting in a lot of fitness groups and whatnot. And across one of those posts, I came in contact with the owner of a small supplement company. And at the time, he was very inspired by my story. He saw my before and after photo, and he wanted to be a part of it. So he asked me if I would be a sponsor athlete for his company. And with that came a bodybuilding coach. So it was another tool that was added on. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot as far as how your body uses food as a tool to survive, how it uses it to build muscle and repair. I learned how exercise is supposed to be utilized in order for you to be successful with it. And it just is not as simple as you get the surgery and then that's it. And unfortunately, that's where most people fail. They have their surgery and they think that they can just still go out and eat fast food every day and that the weight's just going to stay off. And it's just not the case at all. You got to really think of it as that the only thing this surgery is doing is controlling your portion sizes. That's it. But if you're eating a meal that's 4,000 calories and you're able to eat 3 meals like that a day because they're terrible for you, you're just doing it in smaller increments throughout the day. Inevitably, you're going to gain weight again. It's inevitable. So you really have, if you're really serious about this, you really have to take it seriously. You have to learn every aspect. You have to learn, what you need to be eating, the amount that you need to be eating. Something that Danielle and I became very reliant on in this journey is calorie counting. And it really is a surefire way for you to be successful because you can't change the laws of thermodynamics. If you eat less than your body is burning, you're going to lose weight. There's just no way around that. So, we used apps like Fitbit, MyFitnessPal, and, it's something that we emphasized with our clients a lot when we had the business. And it was just like, log everything you have to eat, try to stay under these calories. And it was great because the diet plans that we wrote for people were not chicken, rice, and broccoli 3 times a day. And, you become successful because when you're forced to eat those boring things, it's hard to stay on track. You get bored with it, so we were able to develop these plans for people and for ourselves where it changed things up. And you were looking forward to eating the meals that you had because they satisfied cravings, all while still being healthy. And these are all tools that you have to utilize if you want to be successful in this journey. You just have to.
I would like to ask you both to sort of put yourself back in the shoes of someone first starting out. But let's say someone's listening to this and they haven't really gotten started yet. Maybe they've looked into, ways to lose weight, surgery, or medication. There's these new GLP-1 medications that are, around. We have a lot of tools right around us. So what would you say if someone's just like really struggling, they're not sure how to get started? Like, how would you advise them to get started?
So for me, my number one rule, the best advice I could give is you have to have patience. Obviously, if you're overweight, you want to be skinny quickly. But if you were obese for 30 years, it took you 30 years to get there. It's not going to be fixed in 3 weeks. The longer it takes you to take it off, the easier it's going to be for you to keep it off. Okay? Because that means that you're losing weight at a healthy rate. And, your body is getting acclimated all the way down, and you're getting acclimated with it mentally, and you're going to understand how to keep that weight off, right? But if you're forcing yourself to lose a significant amount of weight in a very quick amount of time, that means you're starving yourself, and eventually you're going to stall out, right? And you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to start making bad choices again. So you just have to understand that it's going to take time to achieve what you want to achieve. That's number one over everything. You have to have patience. And number two, and it's something that Danielle and I have been prefacing this entire podcast, is you have to change the way you see food. You have to. It can be, yes, you can eat when you're happy. Yes, you can eat when you're sad. And guess what? You can still do those things. Just do it the correct way. You can make healthy food taste really good. I promise you. There are so many ways around it. We were very reliant on the Remington James cookbook in our journey. I don't know if you know who Remington James is. He's a YouTube influencer. He is the creator of Anabar, which is my favorite protein bar on the planet. They are delicious, by the way. But he came out with a cookbook that was really macro-based, but it taught you how to make all these great things using healthy ingredients. And I'm talking about pizza. I'm talking about ice cream. I'm talking about Mexican tacos and all these great things that we love to eat as heavy people. But it's all about the ingredients you use. And I promise you, man, listen, it's not going to taste like a 5-star Mexican restaurant. But guess what? It's going to satisfy that urge that you might have an inkling for some Mexican food. But that's more than half the calories knocked off. You know what I mean? There's always ways around it. So you really just have to change your relationship with food. And then 3, Danielle had mentioned that, she felt she didn't want to look silly when she was in the gym, right? If you're uncomfortable about being in the gym because you're afraid of what people are, if you're afraid people are looking at you and, you don't want to look silly, guess what? Who cares what they think? You don't know these people. You're in there for one reason and one reason only, and that's only to better yourself. Put your headphones on, black out the noise. For one, I promise you, nobody's looking at you. And 2, if they are, that's only because they're self-conscious about themselves to begin with, and they need to be picking on somebody else to make them feel better, right? So if that's what's holding you off from getting in the gym, don't let it. Because eventually, right, you're going to be at a point where they're going to be looking at you and like, man, that's what I want to look like. But you have to start somewhere, and you can't let that being scared from being in there and being afraid of being in front of people stop you from getting there, right? So those are my 3 biggest tips that I could have for anybody that's curious about getting into this and having surgery or any weight loss journey, really.
So, Dani, what would you say to someone, just first starting out in their journey? How should they get started?
Do your research, and there are a lot of options out there for people. Like you had mentioned, there's weight loss medications, there's surgery, there's even Weight Watchers, diet. Just do your research. What works for somebody is not always going to work for somebody else.
So I want to ask you guys about post-surgery. You guys are now many years post-surgery. Have you had any challenges in terms of weight regain? Because there is, if you look at the numbers, I think most people never get back to their highest weight, but there's a significant amount of, weight regain that can happen. It's pretty common. So have you guys struggled with that? And are there any tools that you've been using to sort of help combat that?
Yes. So I have yo-yoed my entire life, including post-surgery. After surgery, I stayed I got to my lowest of 155, and then I stayed consistently around 170, 175. And then I eventually did get back up to slowly, but surely up to 220. And then the tool that I decided to use, well, that we both decided to use at the time, Jordan can go into his story after, but was Zepbound. And we reached out to our doctor, our primary care doctor. And again, Zepbound is just another tool, tirzepatide. So we give ourselves a shot once a week, and it just really helps us control our food noise. That's what I like to call it. Because like I had said before, like I like to eat when I'm stressed out, when I'm bored. It's just something I do. My brain tells me this is a good time to go eat. So, I don't really have that with the Zepbound. And so that was another tool that I'm able to use to help me lose weight. And I'm back down to my lowest weight post-surgery.
I think this goes for anybody, and especially in a happy relationship. You find yourself happy and content, and it's very easy to want to kind of be happy and content together, and that includes putting on weight together. And we very much did that. Once we closed shop on the personal training business, and Danielle moved here, and life was just hectic, and we had a lot of outside noise going on. We found ourselves in a place where we had put on some weight, definitely not happy with where we were at. I was 240 pounds when we got married. At my lowest, like I said, post-surgery was at 185. So that's a significant jump. We had talked about revisions. I think Danielle even had went to an appointment or two, but at that time, that's when all these commercials started coming out. We started hearing about all these medications like Wegovy and, Mounjaro. And it was actually at our wedding, another one of the admins in Gym Rats, her name was Kelly, she was telling us that she was on Wegovy. And it was because she looks fantastic. We were like, wow, she looks great. And she said, yeah, I've been on Wegovy, and, it's great. I'm not really hungry, and it's been fantastic. And Danielle and I were talking, and when we were in Mexico, we were like, we're going to ask the doctor about this when we get back. And so when we got back, we made an appointment with our doctor, and we both started off on Zepbound. But of course, when we started off on Zepbound, so did the rest of the world. So it became extremely difficult to find, man. I mean, we would have to call a million pharmacies to get this medication, the beginning doses, right? So we're on like a higher to more maintenance dose right now, and it's easier to get. But the very beginning, like the 2 milligram doses, they were just virtually impossible to find because everyone was taking it, right? Everyone. And
Right.
Listen, I'm going to tell you this. It is a phenomenal, phenomenal drug. It really is. It definitely curbs your appetite. It kills cravings. If I'm being totally honest, if this drug was around when the option was around when I was going to have surgery, I might have never even opted to have bariatric surgery, knowing the success that I'm having with this now, right?
Same.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, that doesn't mean that you can just take this shot and that's the end all be all. You still have to change everything else around it, right?
And the biggest one is your relationship with food.
Too. You can't just take the shot and still eat crap. You have to be healthy. So yeah, Zepbound has been the new part of the latter end of our journey now, and but it's been fantastic. But with that being said, you and I are still in the gym faithfully 5 days, 6 days a week. We don't stop doing that. One is because that's a chance. It's a chance for us to spend time together doing something that we like, with the, kids and life and work and whatnot, and, just being mom and dad, and we don't get a ton of time to spend by ourselves. So that's a time that we look forward to spending doing something that we both love. The gym is always going to hold a special place in our heart because our relationship was founded on the gym, so it's still very much a part of what we do, even though we're on Zepbound. So yeah, that's where we're at with the new part of the journey.
Yeah. Thank you guys for sharing that. Cause I think it's so, one of the reasons I'm starting this podcast is I think we've all seen, these amazing before and afters online. Right. And you guys have amazing before and afters. I've previously lost over 100 pounds, several years ago, and I ended up regaining the weight. But the thing that I think before and afters are great, but they also give this false impression that like you sort of start one place, you end one place, and then everything else is, after that after photo, everything's rosy. And something I really admire about both of you is that you realized there was some weight regain, there was some bumps in the road on your journey afterwards, but you didn't like stay there. You didn't, just like sort of wallow in it. And I know for me, when I lost 120 pounds, I regained it much quicker than I lost it. And it was probably several years, like maybe 2 or 3 years before I really like gave it another shot to like lose the weight again, because I felt so much shame around, I did this publicly, people know me. And then I regained all this weight. I just felt so hopeless almost. So what was that like for you guys after having so much success and then seeing your weight creep back up? Was it hard to get, interested in Zepbound, or was it like just sort of a natural part of your journey at that point?
It was definitely a natural part for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, babe. I saw my friend's success with it, and she had great things to say about it. And I'm a huge proponent of saying that these are just tools, right? So why wouldn't I want to try another tool that's out there and available to me? Yeah. So it was no question for me. If I could try it and be successful with it, then I was going to try it.
Yeah, and I think a big thing for me too is, a lot of the times previous when I was, struggling with weight and I was trying to lose weight, I was really doing it by myself. It makes a very big difference when you have a partner that you're doing it together, because you can hold each other accountable, which we very much do. There are times where, I might not feel it or Danielle might not be feeling it, but guess what? I'm making her go anyways, or she's making me go to the gym anyways. And sometimes you need that, and it made it that much easier, we acknowledge that we gained weight, although she looked beautiful at the wedding. And, we looked at pictures and we were like, man, I wish we would have found this previous, And we saw that, we were like, nah, we're not going to do this. We put in some really hard work over the last few years. Although we're nowhere near where we were at our high weights, there's no reason to even, entertain the idea of getting there. So let's nip this in the butt while we can. And then, we were always open to suggestions, and it was never really the fact of us not willing to putting in the work, because, we're always willing to put in the work. It was just finding something that was going to get us over that hump. And for us, we thought that Zepbound really did that for us.
That's awesome. So, we're coming towards the end of the conversation here today, but I did want to ask, was there anything that we didn't talk about yet that you guys wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I specifically do. It's a touchy conversation. The only reason I bring it up is because if there's anybody that's listening to this that could be struggling with the same thing, I want them to know that they're not alone. And the fact of that is that people who have weight loss surgery often struggle from transfer addiction. I suffered from addiction pretty much my entire adulthood up in my 20s, So once I had gotten married the first time and, I had kids, all that kind of fell off to the back burner. But once I had surgery and then I found myself in a place where I was getting divorced, it was very easy for me to transfer one addiction from the other. And in gym rats, behind closed doors, you would be surprised on how many people are struggling with that same thing every single day, but they're just too embarrassed to say anything about it. So just know that if you're listening and if you're going through that same thing, you're not alone. And it's a common tale. There's people out there who are going through the same exact thing post-surgery. Reach out to somebody that you trust and, get the help that you need. It's just, you're putting in work to fix yourself. Ain't no sense in going backwards and, stumbling in another aspect of your life, and it could, it's not just that. You could literally transfer your addiction to anything else. And like I said, you'd be surprised on how many people that was common with in the group.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Jordan. That's really important. Dani, is there anything that you were wanting to talk about or would like to talk about that we haven't covered yet?
I think Jordan hit the nail on the head. I also personally struggled with alcohol after surgery. And so I've been sober for a long bit now. So we're doing good in that department. But yeah, you're not alone. If you are struggling with something, And like Jordan said, your addiction can be anything. It doesn't have to just be substances, but you're not alone. A lot of people that have surgery transfer their addiction to something else. So just reach out and get the help that you may need.
Because food very much is an addiction. If you struggle
Right.
from weight loss, you know that food is a drug in a sense with you because it releases endorphins. You know, you get happy when you eat the food that you love, you know, and it's a way for you to escape. I just couldn't believe it. I was in shock when, you know, all these people started coming out of the woodwork, because there was one thing that I did in that gym rats group is I was extremely transparent my entire journey, right? Because when I was cruising and I was on top and I was getting ready to compete with bodybuilding and I was looking fantastic, you know, it was easy for me to show that side, right? But when I wasn't doing so great, I also made sure to show that side too, because that's real life, you know, and I wanted people to see that. And you'd be surprised how many people would reach out to me and message me and be like, man, thank you for doing that. You know, I'm going through the same thing. And it's like, because these are real life problems that you're going to go through, man, you know, and with great parts of this journey, you're going to struggle at the same time. You know, you have to know how to get through it and have the support system to help you get through.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you guys for sharing that. I know that's a vulnerable part of your journey, but it's super important to bring awareness to that. So as we're wrapping up, if people want to find you online, follow your journeys, see what you guys are up to, where can people find you online?
If there is anyone out there that's struggling with that transfer addiction and you just want to reach out personally on that end, you can just reach out to me on my personal Facebook at Jordan Torres. You know, you might not know me, but that's all right. I'm here to listen. I can help you get through whatever you're going through because I've been there. You know, in the process of this journey and me being very comfortable in my skin, my wife and I find ourselves liking to travel a lot. So with that being said, I wound up opening my own travel business. So if anyone out there is interested in taking a family cruise vacation, I'm your guy. You can find me on Facebook at PLT Travel, on Instagram at plt.travel. You can email me at paylesstorrestravel@gmail.com. And yeah, just hit me up. Let me know where you want to go. If you're not even sure, I can help you find the perfect destination for you guys to go. It'll be the trip of a lifetime, I promise you. And I hope to hear from you guys.
I do have a fitness Instagram, so it's Dani, DANI_insanity, a nod to how I started working out. Again, that's at Dani, DANI_insanity.
Cool. And I'll have some of those linked in the show notes. We definitely have a lot more we could cover. There's so much about this journey, but one thing I just want to say to you guys, I really appreciate you sharing today. I really appreciate your vulnerability in sharing your story. And something that I, take away from it is just your determination and your ability to just keep going. We all know that like weight loss journeys and health journeys are messy, but I don't think it gets talked about enough. There's a tendency to kind of airbrush things online and make them look, nice and neat and pretty. The way that you guys have shared, your story and the way that you keep, going, right? No matter like sort of the bumps in the road, and the fact that you've kept your persistence is really inspiring to me. And I hope it's inspiring to our listeners, and you just really appreciate your time today. Thank you guys so much. And I hope you'll consider coming back in the future.
Anytime, man. You let us know the time and the place and we'll be there, man. We appreciate you having us on.
Yeah.
This was a
Thank you so
blast.
much. And we're really excited to see the rest of your journey too, because we know you're in the middle of it.
If you're still here, a few quick things before we end. If you found this content helpful or valuable and you'd like to support the show, there are 2 ways you can do that. First, you can help grow the audience by sharing this episode on social media or even send it directly to a friend that you think would enjoy it. Second, you can leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you're listening with. If you'd like to be a guest on Keeping It Off, you'll find a link in the show notes to a simple form you can fill out, and I'll be in touch. One other note, this show is for information only, not medical advice. I'm not a medical professional, so please check with your doctor before making any changes in your healthcare. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you'll come back and check out another episode of Keeping It Off.